I was sitting quietly at my small kitchen table, my hands wrapped around a warm mug of coffee, watching the snow drift lazily past the frosted window pane. Outside, the world was silent, covered in white, and the gentle swirl of snowflakes seemed to soften the edges of everything. The calm of the morning was the kind of peace I had always treasured, a rare moment when time slowed, and the worries of the world felt distant. I let out a soft sigh, feeling grateful for the stillness. Then, suddenly, my phone buzzed on the table. The screen lit up, and my heart skipped a little beat. The name flashing there was my son's. Even after all these years, my heart still fluttered with that small hope whenever I saw his name. I was 65 now, and life had given me plenty of disappointments, but deep down, I never quite lost that tiny spark of hope that maybe he still cared. I picked up the phone and opened the message. The words stared back at me coldly. "We just want a peaceful Christmas with the family. Don't come." I read the text once, then again, and then a third time. The letters on the screen stopped being just words. They became something sharp and painful, slicing right through me. They meant one clear thing: he didn't want me there. The Christmas I had spent months planning, the one I dreamed would bring us all together, was gone in a single, harsh sentence. I had pictured the joy on my grandchildren's faces as they opened their gifts. I had imagined the smells of my kitchen, the cinnamon and pine, filling the air while laughter echoed around the house. I dreamed of us all sharing stories, wrapping ourselves in the warmth of family. But now, all those images melted away, like snow vanishing on the hot pavement. My hands started shaking, not the gentle trembling that comes with age, but a deep, rattling shake that made it hard to even hold my phone. Still, I forced myself to type back the only words I could manage without breaking down. Enjoy. Too cold. Hollow words. I set the phone down slowly on the old wooden table. That table had seen so much family dinners, school projects, birthday cakes, and late-night talks. But now the silence in my apartment felt heavy and unkind, pressing in on me from every side. The Christmas decorations I had hung weeks ago suddenly seemed out of place. The small tree in the corner, strung with ornaments my grandchildren had made with their small hands years ago, looked like props in someone else's life. Stockings hung along the mantel, each one carefully embroidered with a name my grandchildren's names, and even Leah's stocking, my daughter-in-law's, though she had never once thanked me for anything I had done for their family. Last Christmas, I had tried so hard. I had brought out old photo albums filled with moments from my son's childhood, hoping they might want to remember when we were close. But Leah rolled her eyes and whispered something to Daniel, my son, about me living in the past. My grandchildren, Sophie and Evan, barely looked up from their phones as I tried to tell stories about their father as a boy. I kept trying, hoping that if I showed enough love, they would feel it. The worst part wasn't just being excluded. It was how they made it sound so reasonable, so harmless. "We just want a peaceful Christmas," they said. As if I was the one who caused all the chaos. As if the 40 years I spent raising my son alone after his father died meant nothing at all. The 2 jobs, the sleepless nights, the dreams I had given up, none of it mattered. They could have the life I never did, and they wanted me out of the way. I walked slowly to my bedroom and knelt down by the bottom dresser drawer. Beneath neatly folded sweaters lay a small wooden box I hadn't touched in months. Inside there were letters handwritten, crumpled from being read over and over. Letters from Daniel in college, thanking me for the care packages and money when he was broke. Letters from when Sophie was born, promising I would be the most wonderful grandmother. Somewhere along the way, those words vanished from his heart. Could trace the change back to when he married Leah. She came from money, the kind that meant country, club memberships and trips to Europe. My little apartment wasn't good enough for them anymore. My homemade gifts looked cheap compared to her family's expensive presents. The stories about his childhood that once made him smile now made him embarrassed. So, little by little, I became the poor relative they tolerated out of obligation, not love. The phone rang, jolting me out of my thoughts. For a moment, I thought maybe Daniel had realized how cold his message was. Maybe he would apologize. But it wasn't him. It was my neighbor Margaret, from the penthouse upstairs. "Clara, I hope you don't mind me calling," she said in her warm, slow voice. "Charles and I were wondering if you'd like to join us for Christmas dinner tomorrow. We've got a few friends coming, and we'd love to have you." I hesitated. "Oh, I don't want to impose." "Nonsense," she replied. "We're having it catered by Lou Bernard, and we could use someone with your warmth there." Some of Charles's business associates can be rather stiff. Lou Bernard, I'd read about it in magazines. The kind of restaurant I'd never dreamed of stepping foot in. "What should I bring?" I asked, surprised at the steadiness in my own voice. "Just yourself. Cocktails at 6 o'clock. Dinner at 8. And Clara," Margaret paused. "Dress up. It's formal." After hanging up, I stared at my reflection in the hallway mirror. 65. Grey hair I kept carefully colored. Clothes I bought from department store sales. What was I thinking? Saying yes to a dinner with millionaires? Then I remembered Daniel's message. The quiet dismissal. The way he assumed I'd simply disappear. Maybe it was time I stopped making myself small for people who didn't care to see me. I opened my closet and took out the black dress I'd bought for his wedding. Worn only once. It still mostly fit. I would wear my mother's pearl necklace, the one piece of jewelry I owned that could pass for expensive dot, as I hung the dress on the closet door. My phone buzzed again. It was Leah this time. "Thanks for understanding. The kids are excited for a quiet Christmas with just us." I deleted the message without replying. Tomorrow, while they had their peaceful Christmas, I would dine with people who actually wanted me there. And for the first time all day, I smiled, discussing education programs with a woman who ran a charity, and even debating a bit of economics with a former hedge fund manager. The best part wasn't that they treated me as an equal. It was that for the first time in years I felt like one. During dinner, one of the women, Eleanor, leaned toward me. "We're always looking for new board members for the foundation," she said. "You have such insight into what really matters for working families. You'd be perfect." I almost laughed at the idea, but she wasn't joking. "I'd be honored to consider it," I said. And I meant it. By the time I got back to my apartment after midnight, my feet ached from my heels, but I didn't care. I felt alive in a way I hadn't in decades. My phone had been silent all day. No Christmas greetings from Daniel or the kids. They hadn't missed me. And for the first time I realized I didn't miss them either. The following morning, sunlight spilled through my curtains and I woke with a strange lightness in my chest. I couldn't remember the last time I'd opened my eyes on Christmas morning without a rush of responsibility. No turkey to roast at dawn. No gifts to arrange under the tree. No frantic cleaning before the family arrived. For the first time in years, the day was entirely mine. I'd poured my coffee and sat at the table. My laptop was still open from the night before, so I clicked back into my investment account. The number glowed on the screen. Over $8 million. It was almost surreal, like looking at someone else's fortune. I thought about how I had guarded that secret so carefully, all to protect Daniel from depending on me for money. The irony burned. I had kept it from him to preserve his respect. But in the end, he hadn't respected me at all. I remembered the little ways he'd made me feel small over the years. The way his eyes would drift toward Leah whenever I gave a homemade gift, almost like he was embarrassed. The way he would sigh when I couldn't afford to take the kids to Disneyland, comparing me silently to Patricia's generosity. And yet, when he needed help, it was my door he came knocking on, until Leah decided my presence was inconvenient. I closed the laptop and wandered to my closet. My red silk dress hung neatly where I'd left it, still carrying the warmth of last night's laughter. For years, I had lived quietly, as though shrinking myself would make others more comfortable. But last night proved something. I belonged in rooms where people listened to me, where my thoughts mattered, where my presence was wanted. The thoughts stayed with me as the days passed. In January, I decided to do something I'd never done before. Buy myself something beautiful just because I could. I walked into Tiffany & Company, my heart pounding like I was trespassing in a world that wasn't mine. The saleswoman greeted me politely, but her expression changed the second I handed her my Black American Express card. Suddenly, I was offered champagne and shown to a private room. "This Cartier watch would be perfect for you," she said, fastening it around my wrist. The cool metal hugged my skin, and I couldn't stop staring at it. And perhaps a bracelet to go with it. I bought both, not because I needed them, but because I wanted to feel the weight of something I had chosen for myself. That was just the beginning. By mid-January, I'd hired a personal shopper, a decorator, and a real estate agent. The apartment I moved into was everything my old one wasn't. Spacious with marble countertops, high ceilings, and a view of the city that took your breath away. And it was in the same building as Margaret and Charles, only 3 floors above where I used to live. The same building Daniel hadn't visited me in for 5 years. "Are you sure about this?" Margaret asked when I showed her the plans for my new place. "I've never been more sure," I told her. And it was true. The changes weren't just in the walls around me. I hired a personal trainer who came 3 times a week, a stylist who taught me how to dress with confidence, and even a chef twice a week. Not because I couldn't cook, but because I was tired of always being the one to serve others. By February, I hardly recognized myself in the mirror. My posture was stronger. My clothes fit better. My eyes looked brighter, but the biggest change was inside. I no longer walked like I was apologizing for taking up space. Eleanor hadn't forgotten a booth board position she'd mentioned. Soon, I was attending foundation meetings in a conference room overlooking the Hudson River, discussing $1 million grants like they were everyday matters. People listened when I spoke, really listened. When I suggested funding after-school programs in struggling neighborhoods, the idea was met with excitement. By the end of the meeting, $2 million had been allocated to it. My social calendar began to fill in ways I'd never imagined. Charity galas, art openings, wine tastings. Even traveled. A weekend in Napa Valley with Margaret and Charles. A week in Paris with Eleanor. Everywhere I went, I felt like I was waking from a long sleep. The pictures from those events started showing up online. I wasn't posting them. I barely knew how to use Instagram, but my new friends were. There I was, smiling at a charity auction, laughing over wine, seated between a judge and a novelist at a dinner party. I didn't think much about where might see them. I was too busy living, but someone was watching. It was April when the first sign came. A text from Leah. "Hi, Clara. Hope you're doing well. The kids were asking about you." I stared at it for a moment, my mind rolling over the sudden shift in tone. She had never once called me Clara in a warm way. Usually it was clipped and distant, or nothing at all. And now, she was claiming the kids had been asking about me. I didn't answer right away. I was too busy getting ready for a benefit dinner where I was being honored for my work with the foundation. The dress I wore that night cost more than I'd spent on an entire Christmas for my family. I looked in the mirror and saw a woman who had stopped asking for a seat at the table and had built her own instead. 2 days later, another message came. Sophie's spring concert is next week. She'd love to see you there. Now that was interesting. Just a few months earlier, when Sophie had her winter recital, Daniel had told me it was just for immediate family. And now, suddenly, I was being invited. It didn't take much to guess why. I showed the text to Eleanor over lunch at the Metropolitan Club. She raised an eyebrow. Sounds like someone's been doing their research, she said. What do you mean? I asked Clara. You've been all over the society pages these past months. They've seen the pictures. They know you're not just the quiet grandmother in the small apartment anymore. Now they know you're Samoan with influence and money. That night, as I was making dinner, my doorman called, Mrs. Dawson, you have a delivery. It was an enormous flower arrangement. White roses and lies so perfect they didn't look real. The kind-off thing that cost hundreds. The card read, Thinking of you, Mom. Love, Daniel, Leah, Sophie, and Evan. I set the card down on the counter and stared at it. 6 months of silence. And now this. Flowers, invitations, warm texts. The pattern was too obvious to ignore. I walked to my laptop and typed my own name into Google, something I had never done before. And there I was, dozens of photos from the past few months. Me at charity events, sitting at board meetings, bidding at auctions. The captions spoke for themselves. Clara Dawson, major donor and board member. The words major donor seemed to shine like a neon sign. I laughed softly, not because it was funny, but because it weighs exactly what I had suspected. They hadn't suddenly remembered how much they loved me. They'd remembered how much they could use me. The phone calls started early one Tuesday, morning at the end of April. I was halfway through my workout with Marcus, my trainer, when my phone buzzed. Daniel's name lit up the screen. I let it go to voicemail. Then it rang again and again. By the time I'd showered and sat down for breakfast, there were 17 missed calls from him. I listened to the first message as I buttered my toast. Mom, it's Daniel. I really need to talk to you. Call me back as soon as you can. It's important. His voice had a nervous edge. I hadn't heard since he was a teenager trying to explain a dent in the car. By the 5th message, the desperation was clear. Mum, I saw the photos online from those charity events. We need to talk. There it was. He had finally connected the dots. When the phone rang again, I answered. Hello, Daniel. Mom. His voice flooded with relief. Thank God. I've been trying to reach you all morning. I was busy. What do you need? I asked plainly. He was thrown by my tone. I'd never been this direct with him before. Can I come over? I'm not at the old apartment anymore, I said. Silence. What do you mean? I moved. I live in the penthouse now. Same building, different life. A longer pause this time. The penthouse? Mom, those apartments cost. I know what they cost. I could almost hear the gears turning in his head. His mother, who once clipped coupons and shopped sales racks, now lived in one of the most expensive units in the building. I have 30 minutes free at 11, I told him. When he arrived, I barely recognized him. His suit was rumpled, his face drawn and tired. He stepped into my foyer and just stared, taking in the marble floors, the chandelier, the artwork. This is incredible, he said quietly. How did you? When did you would you like coffee? I interrupted. My housekeeper made a fresh pot this morning. You have a housekeeper, he said, as though the words didn't fit in his mouth. I led him to the living room. The view from the windows made him stop mid-step. He lowered himself into a leather chair, still looking like he'd stepped into a stranger's home. Mum, I didn't understand. Last Christmas you were in that little apartment. And now, He gestured helplessly at everything around him. Now I'm living the life I can afford, I said. His eyes narrowed. Where did the money come from? It was always there, I replied. You just never asked. His face went pale. What do you mean? I inherited it 3 years ago from your great-aunt Helen. $8 million. The number hit him like a blow. He leaned back, blinking fast. $8 million? Why didn't you tell me? I sipped my coffee and let the question hang in the air. Tell you what exactly? That I had money you could borrow. That I could fix your problems with my checkbook. That's not what he started. But his voice faltered. The power between us had shifted and he didn't know how to get his footing back. You mean like Patricia does for you and Leah? I asked, keeping my eyes steady on him. Color rose in his cheeks. That's different. How? I leaned forward slightly. She offers and I don't. Or is it because you value her money more than mine? He shifted uncomfortably, glancing away. She wants to help, and I didn't want to. That's not what I meant, he said quickly, but his voice was thin without conviction. We both knew the truth was closer to what I just said than to his weak denial. My phone buzzed on the side table. A message from Margaret confirmed our lunch plans. I glanced at it briefly before looking back at him. I need to wrap this up, Daniel. I have an appointment. He sat forward suddenly. Wait, I came here because Leah and I are having problems. And there it was. The real reason for the 17 calls. The sudden interest in reconnecting. Not guilt, not love. Problems that needed solutions. Solutions that needed money. I'm sorry to hear that, I said softly. And I was. I didn't want my son's life falling apart. But I wasn't about to leap in with a checkbook like I once would have. The divorce lawyer wants a $50,000 retainer, he continued. Quickly. My business is struggling. The kids' school fees are coming up next month. I'm drowning here, Mom. I nodded slowly. And what do you want me to do? I'm asking for your help, he said, his voice cracking slightly. I know I haven't been the best son lately. I know Christmas. His eyes dropped to the floor. I know we made mistakes. But I'm family. Family, I repeated, tasting the word. You're also the same person who told me not to come to Christmas because you wanted peace. The same person who didn't calm for 6 months. And now you're here because you need something. His mouth tightened, but he didn't deny it. For a moment he looked like the boy I'd once tucked into bed after nightmares. Scared, small, unsure. I'm sorry. I was wrong. Leah influenced me, and I let her. She influenced you to treat your mother like she was disposable. He hesitated. She said you were trying to control us, to make us feel guilty for not needing you anymore. The honesty landed like a blow, but I didn't flinch, Doc, and now you need me again. He nodded miserably. I know how it looks. I don't deserve your help, but I'm desperate, Mom. I don't know what else to do. I stood, smoothing the front of my skirt. I'll think about it. You'll think about it. The confusion on his face was almost childlike. Yes, I said plainly. I'll decide if helping you is something I want to do. If it's good for me. If it fits the life I'm living now. He stared at me like I was a stranger. And in many ways, I suppose I was. The woman who once dropped everything for him was gone. After he left, I stood by the window looking down at the street. I imagined him sitting in his car trying to process what had just happened. Trying to figure out how his reliable self-sacrificing mother had become someone who said, I'll think about it instead of whatever you need. The truth was, I had already made up my mind. I just wasn't ready to tell him. Not yet. I let 2 weeks pass before I called him back. 2 weeks of missed calls, texts, even messages from Leah. Then Sophie called, her young voice trembling as she told me how stressed her dad was. How her mom cried at night. They were using every emotional button they could find. Buttons I'd once been so easy to push. When I finally invited Daniel over again, I planned it carefully. Saturday afternoon, right after I returned from a weekend in the Hamptons with Eleanor and her husband. I was still in the soft linen dress I'd worn on their yacht, my hair tousled from the sea air, my skin carrying the glow of days spent with people who valued my company. Daniel showed up looking worse than before. The suit was gone, replaced by jeans and a wrinkled shirt. His hair needed a trim. The desperation in his eyes was impossible to miss. "Thank you for seeing me," he said, as I led him into the living room. "I know you're busy," he added. "I was," I replied simply. "Sit down, Daniel," I said, motioning toward the sofa. He sat on the very edge like he wasn't sure if he was welcome to get comfortable. I took the chair across from him, the same seat I had used the last time he was here. "Before we talk about what you need," I began, "I want you to understand something I've learned these past few months." He nodded quickly, like a student trying to impress a teacher. "I've learned that I spent 40 years making myself smaller so other people could feel bigger. I worked jobs I didn't like so you could have the opportunities. I lived in apartments that were too small for me so you could have college funds. I wore clothes that made me invisible so you could shine." "Mom, I never asked you to." "No," I said firmly. "You didn't ask. You just expected. And I gave because I thought that's what love was. Sacrifice without recognition. Service without appreciation." He didn't argue this time. I leaned forward, my voice calm but steady. "Do you know what I've discovered since Christmas? I've discovered that when people see you as valuable, they treat you as valuable. When they know your time matters, they don't waste it. When they understand your attention is a gift, they're grateful to receive it." His hands were clenched together in his lap. "I chose you too, Mom. You're my mother." I shook my head. "No, Daniel, you didn't choose me. You inherited me. That's different." He looked away, and I could see in his face that he knew I was right. "I want to help you," I continued, "but not the way I used to. Not by fixing every problem so you can keep making the same mistakes. Not by being the safety net you fall into whenever you don't want to face the ground." His brow furrowed. "What do you mean?" I reached into my purse and pulled out a folder. Inside were neat stacks of papers, bank statements, handwritten notes, every record I'd kept for 20 years. I placed them on the coffee table between us. "This is what I mean. For 20 years you've borrowed money from me. Sometimes it was small amounts. 50 here, 200 there. Sometimes larger, like the 5,000 for Sophie's school fees. Do you know how much it adds up to?" He shook his head slowly. $47,000, I said. His mouth opened, but no words came. "I kept track of every dollar because I thought one day you'd want top now. Maybe even try to pay it back. But you never asked because to you it wasn't truly borrowing. It was just taking what you needed from someone who would never say no." He finally spoke, his voice low. "I didn't think you minded." "Of course I minded," I said. "But I trained you to think it was my job to give. So you stopped seeing it as a sacrifice. You saw it as my function." I gathered the papers back into the folder. "Here's what's going to happen. I will help you with the divorce lawyer. I'll give you 50,000 you need." Relief flashed across his face. "Thank you, Mom. I promise I'll pay you back." "No," I interrupted. "You won't pay me back. This isn't a loan." He frowned. "Then what is it?" "It's severance pay," I said, my voice even. "I'm buying myself out of the obligation to fix your problems. After this, we're even. No more emergencicals. No more expecting my money to save you. You handle your life from here on out. Panic crept into his eyes. But what if something happens? What if the kids need something? Then they have you, I said. And Leah's mother. Patricia's been your ATM for years. I'm sure she'll continue. That's different, he muttered. Yes, I said. She gives because she wants to, because you make her feel appreciated. You've never treated my help that way. He sat there struggling to process this new reality. The mother who had always said yes was finally saying no. There's something else we need to talk about, I said. His expression tightened. What is it? Christmas. He looked down at his hands. What about Christmas? You told me not to comb because you wanted a peaceful Christmas with family, I said slowly. But I was family too, Daniel. I was family until it was inconvenient for you. He winced. We made a mistake. Ain't know that now. No, I corrected. You made a choice. You chose Leah's comfort over me feelings. You chose your children's preferences over your mother's place in their lives. You chose peace over loyalty. I'm sorry, he said quietly. I believe you, I replied. But sorry doesn't erase the 6 months I spent wondering what I did wrong. Sorry doesn't change the message you sent, that I wasn't welcome in my own family. Tears began to fill his eyes. This Timothy felt real. Not the kind he'd used when he wanted something, but the kind that came when the truth was too heavy to carry. What can I do to make it right? He asked. You can accept that this is how things are now, I told him. I'm not the same person I was at Christmas. I'm not someone who begs to be included or accepts scraps of faction. I'm someone with choices, and I'm choosing to live differently. Hess stared at me for a long moment. Does that mean you don't want me in your life? I looked at him, really looked at the man I had raised, sacrificed for, defended, even when he was wrong. I want you in my life if you want to be in men, I said, but really in it, not just when you need something. I want you to call because you care how I'm doing, not because you want me to fix a problem. I want you to invite me places because you enjoy my company, not because you feel obligated. I do enjoy your company, Hess said quickly. Do you? When's the last time you called just to talk? When's the last time you asked about my interests, my friends, my hopes for the future? Hess said nothing. The silence told me everything. I'm not angry anymore, I continued. I'm just done being taken for granted. Done being treated like I'm lucky to be part of your life instead of the other way around. I stood smoothing my dress. I'll have my lawyer transfer 50,000 to your account this week. After that, we start fresh. You decide what kind of relationship you want with me, and I'll decide if it's the kind of relationship I want too. He stood a swell, looking uncertain, almost lost. Can I hug you? I nodded. He stepped forward, and I let him wrap his arms around me. It felt different this time, less like I was clinging to him, more like he was holding on to me. I love you, Mom, he whispered. I love you too, I said softly. That love isn't now anymore. I need respect too. After he left, I walked to the window and looked out over the city. And for the first time since Christmas, I felt something I hadn't felt in years, complete peace. 6 months later, I was in my kitchen making coffee when my phone rang. It was Emma. Grandma Clara, I hope I'm not bothering you, she said. You're never bothering me, sweetheart, I told her, smiling at the sound of her voice. How are you? I'm good. Really good. Actually, I wanted to thank you. That caught me off guard. In all her 19 years, Emma had never called just to thank me for anything. Not for birthday gifts. Not for school clothes I'd bought when times were tough. Not for the countless weekends I'd babysat so her prince could go out. Thank me for what? I asked. For the college fund. Dad told me you set one up for Jake and me. Nobody's ever done anything like that for me before. I thought back to the quiet afternoon I'd spent with my financial advisor, setting up education trusts for both grandchildren. Money he could use for tuition, books, or living expenses. But that Daniel couldn't touch. Money with no strings attached. No guilt. You're welcome, honey. I said, I just want you to have the opportunities. It's not just the money, she said. It's that you actually thought about my future. Mum's always focused on right now, and Dad's always stressed about work. But you planned for something that isn't even happened yet. Her words surprised me with their maturity. When had she grown into such a thoughtful young woman? Can I ask you something, Grandma? She continued. Of course. Are you happier now? I paused. What do you mean? Dad says you've changed. Since you moved to the penthouse. He says you're more independent. And when I saw those pictures of you at those charity events, you looked so happy, like really happy. I don't remember you looking like that for. I thought about how to answer. Emma was old enough to hear the truth. I am happier, I told her. I'm living the life I want, instead of the one other people expected me to live. Is that why you don't come to family dinners anymore? She asked gently. That's part of it, I said. I don't come because I'm not invited the right way anymore. What does that mean? It means that for years I was invited to family events as the help. Come early to cook, stay late to clean, bring something homemade because the all other grandmother was bringing something expensive. I was included, but not really welcome. Emma was quiet for a moment, and I could picture her taking it in. Do you think we tolerated you? She asked softly. Not you, sweetheart. You were a child. You didn't have a say in how adults treated each other. But now I do have a choice. I choose to spend my time with people who want me there. I'm calling because I want to see you, she said. Not because Mum told me to. Not because it's a holiday. Because I miss you. That evening, Emma came to my apartment for dinner. It wasn't a family dinner with tension simmering under the surface. It was just the two of us getting to know each other as adults. She told me about her classes, her friends, her plans for the future. I told her about my travels, my work with the foundation, and the art classes I'd started taking. We talked for hours. At one point, she looked at me and said, Can I tell you something that might sound weird? Sure. I think y'all are cooler now than you've ever been. I laughed. Cooler? Yeah. You have this confidence now. Like you know who you are and you're not apologizing for it. When I was little, you always seemed like you were trying to make everyone else happy. Now you seem like you're trying to make yourself happy. Is that bad? I asked with a smile. Are you kidding? It's amazing. I want to be like that when I'm your age. When she left that night, she hugged me tighter than she had since she was a little girl. Can we do this again? Just us. Anytime you want. I said, and I meant it. 2 weeks after Emma's visit, my phone rang again. This time it was Jake. Grandma Clara. His voice was deeper than I remembered, but still carried that boyish tone. Hi, sweetheart, I said warmly. How are you? I'm okay. Dad says you might not come to Christmas again this year. That's right, I said gently. Can I ask why? I explained it the same way I had to Emma about the difference between being wanted and being tolerated, about choosing to spend my time with people who valued it. There was a pause. Then he said, What if I wanted you there? Like really wanted. You there? Not just because Mom says family should be together. Then we'd figure out a way to celebrate together. I told him. Maybe not on Christmas Day, but something just for us. Would you teach me how to make that stuffing you used to make? He asked. The one with the apples. I smiled, of course. So Jake started coming over every other Saturday. We'd cook together in my kitchen, laughing as he peeled apples too slowly and chopped celery too fast. While the food baked, I'd tell him stories about his father as a boy, about his grandfather he never met, about the family history no one else seemed interested in keeping alive. I could see in his eyes how much these afternoons meant to him, and, to me, the real surprise came in November. Daniel called, and for the first time in a long time, it wasn't because he needed me. "Mum, I wanted to talk about Christmas," he began. I braced myself for another plea or negotiation. "I know you're not coming to our house," he continued. "And I understand why, but I was wondering, would you be okay if I came to see you? Just me on Christmas morning before all the chaos starts." I was quiet for a moment, letting his words sink in. "I'm not asking for anything," he added quickly. "I just want to spend some time with my mother if you'll have me." "What about Leah?" I asked. "We're working on our marriage," he said carefully. "Part of that is me learning to keep relationships that matter to me, no matter how they fit into her plans." It was the most self-aware thing I had ever heard from him. "I'd like that," I told him. On Christmas morning, he arrived at 10 o'clock with a thermos of coffee and a small bag of pastries from my favorite bakery. Months earlier, I had mentioned in passing how much I loved their almond croissants, and he had remembered. We sat in my living room, watching snow fall over the city. For once, there was no tension, no unspoken demands, hiding between sentences. He asked about my work with the foundation, my travels, the art classes Emma had mentioned. I asked about his business, his marriage, and his hopes for the new year. "I owe you an apology," he said as he was getting ready to leave. "You've already apologized," I reminded him. "Not for Christmas last year," he said. "Well, yes, for that too. But for all the years back, for treating your generosity like it was my right, for taking your love for granted, for never seeing you as a person with your own dreams and needs." I studied his face, searching for any sign that these were just words, but they weren't. His eyes were steady. His voice didn't shake. "What changed?" I asked softly. "Watching you live differently," he said. "Seeing how happy you are when you're not constantly trying to take care of everyone else." I realized I'd never even wondered what would make you happy. And now I can see it. You're happier than I've ever seen you. And I'm proud of you for choosing yourself. After he left, I sat in my apartment surrounded by the life I had built for myself and felt something I had never felt before. Complete contentment. Later that day, my phone buzzed. Emma sent me photos from the homeless shelter where she was volunteering. Jake sent a picture of the dinner he'd cooked using one of my recipes. Margaret and Charles invited Meffa champagne that evening. People who chose to include me because they wanted me there, not because they felt they had to. That night, I stood on my balcony, the city lights twinkling below, wrapped in a soft cashmere robe that cost more than I used to spend on groceries. In a month, I thought about the woman I had been a year ago, the woman who accepted exclusion as the price of keeping the peace, who shrank herself so others could feel big. That woman was gone. In her place was someone who understood her own worth. Someone who knew the difference between being loved and being used. Someone who had learned that love without respect isn't love at all. Just as I was finishing my glass of wine, my phone rang. It was Eleanor calling from her vacation home in Aspen. "Clara, darling, I hope you had a wonderful Christmas. I wanted to let you know the foundation board voted yesterday. We'd like you to chair the education committee next year." I smiled. "I'd be honored." "Wonderful. And when we get back, Richard and I are having a small dinner party. Just 8 or 10 people. You must come." After I hung up, I poured myself another small glass of wine and raised it in a toast. To my entire apartment, to the view, to the woman I had become. Here's to new beginnings, I said out loud. Somewhere out there, my family was learning to miss me the right way. To value me for who I was, not for what I could give them. Some of them were rising to the occasion, others weren't. But for the first time in my life, that choice was theirs, not mine. I had given them the greatest gift I could, the chance to choose me freely, without obligation or guilt. And I had given myself the greatest gift of all, freedom. Because the truth I had learned after everything was simple. The relationships worth keeping are the ones where you are wanted, not needed. Where love and respect walk hand in hand. Where you are valued for who you are, not just for what you can provide. And once you learn that, you never go back to making yourself small.